Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome back. Another day here at Giga-Texas. Even though it looks beautiful right now, overnight we had some pretty large thunderstorms come through the area, and you'll see the results of that all over, especially in some of the major construction zones where they're doing earthwork. Speaking of which, going over to the far southwest corner, you can see that test track is continuing to develop, and despite all of the mud because of all the rainstorms, crews are continuing to make more progress. They've filled in some of the drainage ditches to make that whole part of the site kind of contiguous, and it looks like they're starting to trace out what may be the track's overall shape. And we'll have to continue to watch that as it goes, but it is pretty cool to see this developing here at Giga-Texas after almost 6 years of construction. It's definitely about time. Now, moving over to the far southeast, you can see that the work on River Road's extension in this area has kind of slowed for the moment. However, if we continue to go up to the far northeast, you can see that the work has shifted up to that location as they are preparing the road extension through this section next to the battery cathode plant and continuing up further north to that Lone Tree field. Now on the north end, the construction continues and ground preparation for the north campus, and we can see more of the earthwork in that large rectangular field. Some additional work that's being done to clear out some more of the debris in that area, and of course the concrete demolition work and crushing operation to clear out even more of the land in that location. Of course, the rains have made that kind of a giant mud pit too, so it's going to be slow until this nice weather starts drying it up. The last thing that I want to point out here before we get into the video from today is over at the outbound lot, they're continuing to be busy with the Cybercabs. There's at least 16 more lined up for transport, and I got you some really nice lower altitude views of those today. And these are still the ones that are going out for testing. We're starting to see that all over the country, and these are distinctly different from what you can see visually than the production versions. But for right now, this is what you are going to be seeing out in the wild as they're doing testing, and as many people are starting to get a chance to see them more closely and get some nice pictures of them, much like we saw yesterday out at Washington, D.C. Now, one last message before we get into the drone. As you can see, I'm wearing the Chattanooga Charge shirt. This event is coming up over in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And this event I was at last year. It was a lot of fun, a lot of great people coming out to see some of the displays, some of the demonstrations, doing some off-road driving in Cybertrucks. Had a lot of event for kids, and of course a big light show as well. So I'm really looking forward to that coming up, and there are still tickets available. So if you want to go to the link, it's on the bottom of the screen and in the video description. You can still sign up, and I hope to see you there. For now, let's get into the drone. Let's fly around and see what else is going on here at Giga-Texas.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Well, good morning from a very wet and muddy Giga-Texas. We see that there is work starting here at this intersection between River Road and Cyber Circle, and that will continue all the way along this berm and the silt fence, following along towards where Robotic Avenue is, and then that turns to the north, follows Robotic Avenue all the way up to Cortex 2. It's part of the wastewater management system diversion project. We also see work is continuing on this intersection that will be formed here with Robotic Avenue and River Road. And next to this section, we can tell that there is excavation work underway. And I think this is for that wet water pond that we saw in the permit that I've talked about in the past. So this work is continuing. While I'm at this location and altitude, we'll fly past the recycling yard on the right and over a little bit of the east warehouse on wheels, and also many of the workshops and some of the materials and containers and vehicles, and also the trailers for the contractors. We're kind of looking off towards the east over this section here with that large mound of dirt and this old concrete truck maintenance facility, which is being prepared for demolition. They're still doing some earth removal, and probably because of potentially some contamination, that's why it's over on those plastic tarps that you see on the ground. And there's also a lot more of the concrete on this pile that needs to be recycled up with the Lippmann recycling processing that is going on farther to the northeast. And we'll see that later in the video. As I continue to proceed back towards that southeast corner, you can tell that more dirt has been brought in for the grade through this section in the middle of the screen. This is where River Road eventually will go through and head up to that northeast. This is also a nice look at the workshops that are still building a lot of the manifolds that are being installed into Cortex 2. You see some of those on the ground, many of the other materials on the right, and work underway inside these 3 covered workshops. And another good view here of that recycling yard. And the scales are on the right-hand side of the screen next to those light posts, and that's where they put the trucks and they get the weight of the materials that are being recycled. As we cross Robotic Avenue to the east side of the parking garage, I promised on my last video I would look at what are these items on the ground. It looks like those are trench boxes that are being stored temporarily, and those are used when they're trenching so that the trenches don't collapse in on the workers. Across Robotic Avenue, this material staging yard continues to have materials stockpiling, and next to the wind tunnel here, and I'll zoom in for you to get a better shot, is they are continuing to work on all of the new electrical conduit, the risers next to the wind tunnel, and this is to give it permanent power instead of relying on that green trailer that is a portable generator. This is also a nice view of the lot here with more of the vehicles being stored, waiting for either direct delivery to customers in the future or for other dispensation of those vehicles. So we're going to fly along the parking garage up to the melt center, and I'll zoom in so we get a look at the activity today. There are a lot of castings, and some of them are on the ground. Most of them are in the racking systems. And as I've mentioned before, one of the things I did learn during my tour is that for the Cybercabs, they have a new system that connects interior of the building to the production line from the casting section. So we should see many less, if not no, Cybercab castings on the outside as production gears up here in the next few weeks. So that is a big change and something they've been wanting to do for quite some time, because castings are large and they take up a lot of space. Now, next to this temporary platform, see these 4 trailers with cooling units, also some of the pipes, manifolds, and other items being constructed here. This is part of the thermoplastic injection molding system that is used in the Cybercab production. As we pass this platform, the 2 large tanks, this is the exit point for the Cybercabs, and there are none here at the moment that I flew by. But rest assured, we'll see a lot more Cybercabs a little later in the video. More materials here on the east side of the stamping machine section. And of course, the fans are going like mad on the cooling system for Cortex 1. Hopefully they're doing a lot of training for full self-driving, maybe for Cybercab, and maybe for that elusive 14.3 FSD sometime. So hopefully they're making a lot of progress with that. So I'm going to bring the drone up to a higher altitude. We'll fly over River Road and the Colorado River and towards the construction that is underway just on the other side of the Colorado River, coming into view on the upper left-hand side of the screen. Now, the roadway is Falwell Lane, and it extends underneath the bridge over to where we see more apartments being built. The work that's being done here appears to be for some sort of piping, and you can see some of that being stored nearby the excavation work right by the power lines. Looking across the highway, we can get a good view of all of the work that's being done here, especially with the near part of the screen at the bottom where they're doing more of that water vault and Falwell Lane extension over to those apartments. Keeping the zoom in briefly, I'll show you the test track is starting to take shape. In fact, the outline is starting to take shape, I believe. And a nice view with downtown Austin in the background. So I'll continue to pan the drone along the highway back towards the main factory, and a great view of all of what is going on here on the south end, most of which has been completed with all of the trench work, the caissons, and the pipe installation. And you can see the remnants of that all along the berm here and the construction privacy fences that go along this side as well. So I'm going to proceed up to the exit point for the Model Ys, and we'll see what activity is there going on there today. So as we get to the exit point of the Model Ys, I'll zoom in and show you that there is a continued production vehicle coming out that is driving itself very clearly. You can see the steering wheel and the white interior, and also neat to see just how much traffic it has to take care of as it comes out of the factory. Now this is an interesting sight. The red and silver Model Ys are driving back up into the factory through the ramp. It's the first time I've seen this, at least while I've been watching during production, so I'm not sure exactly what that is for, but there you go. Something new and has to do with the exit point for the Model Ys. So I'm going to bring the drone up to a much higher altitude. We're going to fly over the highway, and we'll resume on the other side where there's some interesting developments, especially with Cybertrucks and Cybercabs. There's a great view of all of the Model Ys that have driven autonomously over to the end of line. They're accumulating on the left-hand side of the screen, kind of that lane with the cones, and more of them getting ready to enter into the factory. Of course, the Tesla letters on top of the direct delivery center and the track for the small kids Cybertrucks that if you were to take delivery here, you could drive. And more of the vehicles are arriving here on the site. Here's another couple directly ahead. And we'll get to this corner of the building and show you what's going on with the superchargers. You can see there's Cybertrucks. There's another one on the left. And if you look on the upper left of the screen, you're going to see a Cybertruck coming out of the Cyber tunnel. And that kind of caught my eye. And I thought I would head back towards the Cyber tunnel and see if there were more coming out. And unfortunately, it was only that one. But what we are seeing is Cybertrucks starting to show up in larger numbers, still small, but over in the outbound lot. And I think that we're just a matter of maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 weeks away from a large bump in Cybertruck production because of all of the orders for the rear-wheel drive version that was at that 59,990, and still expecting to see deliveries of those beginning in June. As we fly over the West Warehouse on wheels, wanted to get in closer to where the test track is being built, and we'll fly over the power lines. I'll show you the outline. You can see the construction fence on the bottom left of the screen. Still some more risers of the electrical conduit that need to potentially be removed, and what looks to be kind of an outline of maybe the track starting to form, almost like a large oval. And on the left-hand side of the screen, it looks like they are building out some of the berms here and crossing over some of the drainage ditches. It's possible that on each of the main curving parts of the road or the track, we may be seeing a raised berm. And if that's the case, then we will see that work continuing to bring the grade up over the corners. We saw all those trucks. That's where they were filling in the draining ditches in the middle to kind of bring this into a contiguous spot. And here we can tell the kind of an outline that just seems to continue to be developing, and it goes all the way around this section of the site. And if they're going to have that kind of raised berm or the shoulder around where the track is curving, we should see some of that work beginning soon. But overall, the amount of rain that we got because of the heavy thunderstorms that I mentioned in the intro is really making this a giant mud pit. But good look at what may be the outline of the track on the left-hand side of the screen. All the areas at the bottom right is where the geotextile memory was being installed on my previous video, and now it's mostly covered with dirt. A lot of standing water here where they are kind of grading out this what may be a road section, and you can see how it may eventually connect over to the one on the right-hand side of the screen on this part of the site. And look at some of the bulldozers and excavators that are here on this part of the site. I don't expect much being done until it dries out. I'm going to cross over the power lines, take a brief look at the work here and materials at this staging yard. Much of the ones in this trapezoid section are for the 4680s. We can see much of the steel and other items have been brought over by the power lines to clear out space for that track construction. And then here we see a lot of superchargers. This is where the supercharger workshop is. A lot more items have been delivered, posts and other of the units for charging as well. And it just seems like they're continuing to build those out at a pretty quick rate. As I continue to maneuver here, we'll fly over the transformers that are being stored, some of the containers and other materials on the right-hand side of the screen. And as we continue to fly to the north, where we can see where the road is going to be extended through, and this new staging yard where much of the materials that was down where the track is located, this was all moved here to make space. So as I get back towards the outbound lot, you can tell that it is quite full today. Many vehicles in both the east and the west sides. They're all in the lanes for being picked up by the trucks, and the trucks themselves are quite busy here, as you can tell. Also, the ground is quite wet from all of those thunderstorms, as I've been mentioning. Bring the drone down a little bit lower. Get a look at all of these Model Ys that are stacking up here. I've had some viewers ask if I can tell them specifically if their VIN is here, and I'm sorry, I can't do that. All I can do is fly the drone and show you what is here, and hopefully your car, if you're still waiting for it, is here and it'll be getting to you soon. But the big thing I want to show you is all of the Cybercabs that are here being lined up, getting ready for transport. And I'll kind of fly around here and give you some really good views. I'll bring the drone down lower and we'll fly at a better altitude so you can get some more details. Now, these are all test units. They will have the steering wheels and pedals. These are being shipped around the United States. We've been seeing a lot of that here recently. These have the blue tape on the doors for where when they get to their location, they'll put the mirrors on if it's needed for the local requirements. And also all of these are wrapped with that gold wrap. And that's one of the biggest differentiators between the test units that we are seeing all over the country and some of the more production ones. And it's really hard to tell the difference from the drone. But these, again, are being used for testing, and maybe they're heading off to a bunch more cities around the country. Many of them do not have the wheel covers on, as you can tell. In fact, almost all of them. And I've had people ask me again about the wheels. Why are they different, mismatched? That's just the decision that was made. That is what will be behind the wheel covers. And yes, the rears are alloys and the fronts are steel. And they're also different diameters. I'm going to fly over the direct delivery center where many vehicles are being set up for deliveries to customers today. And while I'm here, I'll continue to fly up to the north over several of these staging yards where we see some of the casting racks and other systems being stored. the two tents, much of the containers here, and the workshop coming up in the upper left, and much of the Evapco fan units, still waiting for them someday to be used, and more of the steel being stored here on the right-hand side of the screen. The last thing I'll just show you here is before we cross back over the highway is the rental equipment lot that was relocated from the far northeast. This is what it looks like here today, and quite a bit of the materials are stored here. A few of the offices, we see some trailers, also a kind of a rounded top in these containers on the right hand side of the screen. They'll have a canvas roof put on for that to become a workshop. And the rest of the workshops and related equipment are across the highway just north of the electrical switchyard. So this is a great view of Giga-Texas coming in from the northeast. We'll cross over the highway and resume on the other side. We'll stop here briefly to show you that the two white tanks that have been here for about a month are now gone. So they've been moved inside, and that shows more progress, which is great to see. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to tell exactly where they were taken. But here on the north end, we're passing the plastics manufacturing section. There's a large delivery taking place. And of course, these wooden crates are what they're shipping in the Cybercab forms that are used for measurements. And those are next to this, as I zoom in, a Model Y, what used to be called the standard body, sitting here. Those are the forms on the rack. Other forms that are used for vehicle bodies and parts, and more of those forms for the Cybercab. Also, bumper stands for painting of the Model Y on the left-hand side of the screen. So that continues to see a lot of these types of items here on the north end of the paint shop. As I turn around, just a brief look at all of the casting racks and systems. Much of this is for the Cybertruck. And with those orders, as I mentioned, I expect to see a lot more of these being produced here in the near future to meet the demand. So I'm going to bring the drone up over the power lines and across Tesla Road. We'll come back down and show you what's going on here near the electrical switchyard. First, there's materials here at the bottom of the screen. We can see this is all being cleared up, and the fiber reinforced polymer beams are being put onto the truck to take over to Cortex 2. We see some of the trailers on the right for temporary offices. These covered items are for the interior of Cortex 2 and more of the heating and ventilation systems in those white boxes. This is where cable has been pulled through the conduits and work is continuing. Some more of the concrete vaults have arrived. And next to these three trailers, more of the dirt and gravel has been brought in on the south side, although the opening to the underground vault is still here available out of the ground for additional work for right now. As I reposition the drone here, there is some big news at the electrical switchyard. First, as I zoom in, you can see the third transformer getting ready to be assembled. All of the boxes that you see on the right with the red covering are for that transformer. But the big news, as you can tell here, is that crews are busy pulling the high tension cables between the A-frames. And you can actually see the work underway right now. The cable is being pulled through, and the worker is up on the man lifts. And it looks like the other A-frames have tags on each of the powered lines, so they're probably not energized right now, and that work will be coming up very soon. The way that that's going to be done and how they're going to bring power in is something that is very interesting. I have some viewers that are suggesting that it's going to be done near the ground through the original part. However, we do see here on the north these kind of cages, these cylindrical cages. These are bases for large power poles, just like you see in the upper right of the screen. Those will be installed using a gigantic auger kind of drill bit, and they will be drilled into the ground and then placed somewhere here on the north end. And how all that's going to work, I'm not really sure yet, but I suspect we'll see more of the tall power poles, these gray poles, on the north side of that switchyard in the near future. As I fly over the concrete batch plant, I'll also show you where the rental equipment lot, the other parts have been brought. You can see those rounded top coverings. Those have some trucks in them, and also some of the containers and the solar panels. This is where the other part of that has been moved. In fact, in the top of the screen, that lone tree field that you can see, that is where all of the rental equipment lot used to be. As we approach the large rectangle kind of field here, a good view of the earthwork that is underway here for the North Campus. Now, much of this, and the reason why it's shaped the way it is because this was debris mixed in with wood and dirt and other materials. All the work right now is to clean this up and prepare the dirt and the ground for that construction. And many of the mounds of dirt that were here on this cleared area have been moved away. You can see some more of the debris on the right and in and amongst some of the cleaned up dirt here. And the clean dirt is being put into the dump trucks and then brought to a location just to the east of the battery cathode plant for now. I'll kind of maneuver around here. You can tell the equipment that is being used for this clearing, some of the dirt that still needs to be filtered, and more of the large excavation equipment that has arrived here on site. I did notice up here these vehicles. I wanted to see what they are. I think what this actually is, it may be some repair that's being done possibly to the bulldozer, but we can also tell nearby much of the dirt that's been displaced here in this sand and gravel mine hills and valleys. And I think with the soil sampling that they've done here too, is we're going to expect to see that filled in at some point. Now at the top of the screen is where the rental equipment lot used to be. I wanted to stop here briefly to see what was in this corner. And as you can tell, it's a lot of debris that is also going to have to be mulched and filtered and sifted, just like what we've seen in the other part of the side of the upper right-hand side of the screen. Coming into view is the lone tree, and it's got the fence around it to protect it. The idea is that they want to keep this tree in this field, which I think is a great thing. And a closer view of where the rental equipment lot used to be. Just some of the concrete panels that will have to be broken up with the concrete crushing operation with that large gray pile. And then just a few more items of the rental equipment that need to be relocated. As I continue to fly at a lower altitude here, you can see these long kind of dirt roads on the right-hand side of the screen. This is preparing this site for eventual filling and preparation for construction. And of course, here's a good view of that Lippmann concrete crushing operation. Just a tremendous amount of concrete on this large gray pile that continues to grow. And next to some of the equipment, you can see that large rebar pile on the left-hand side of the screen that is also growing enormously as well. And also just some of the remaining concrete in this large site that still needs to be recycled. But they're making some pretty good headway, especially considering how much is here from about 4 years worth of concrete debris. I'm going to maneuver further up to the northeast here briefly just to show you where the River Road extension work has been kind of the bulk of the work been relocated here. They've been flattening out the hills and the valleys and preparing the route through the trees. Looks like some excavation work on this temporary dam on the right-hand side of the screen, and a great view up to the battery cathode plant. So you get a pretty good idea of where exactly we are located. So I'm going to come in over the field that's been picking up a lot of the dirt here at the bottom right of the screen, show you the transformers for Cortex 2, and we'll prepare to look at the crash testing facility where they have a lot more Cybercabs as well. I'll zoom in here. We can see these Cybercabs along the fence line and a view into part of the crash testing facility. There have been a few of these that moved inside for crash testing, so the numbers here are starting to decrease. Underneath the tarps are more of the Cybercabs that have already been crash tested. And at the south end is the crash test dummy new laboratory that is starting to take shape very quickly. Most of the walls and the roof are in. You can see the windows and the loading bay on the west side. And as I maneuver around, this gives you a really Nice view, and with the workers, the sense of scale of this particular structure and its location relative to the crash testing facility as well. So I'm going to zoom out and we're going to fly around here briefly showing you the areas that we came from at the very far north and all the work here for River Road's extension. Next to this filtration pond and the crash testing facility. And I'm going to fly over to Cortex 2 and we'll take a look at some of the activity that is going on there today. This shot gives you a nice overall view of what is going on. We're going to start here on the south side and work our way around the building. It looks like they are continuing to work in this depression on the south side. There are some stakes in the ground, and I'm still watching to see what that will be. The megapacks, at least for now, appear to be installed for the half that they need for getting Cortex 2 up and running by April. And then, as we talked about before, they will build the second part throughout the summer. The Saren's crane is being dismantled, which suggests to me that it may be a little while before we see more of the megapacks for the second part to arrive. And here's a nice bird's eye view of the work, disassembling it and preparing it for shipping off-site. Now, these are usually rental equipment, so it's expensive for them to sit idle. And if it's not going to be used for some time for the rest of the megapacks, then it makes better sense to stop using them, stop renting them, and sending them off to another site. This is a good look at the new workshops, the new roofs, and some of the equipment that is around them. And then coming back over to the second half of the megapacks, a nice look at all of the screw type piers that have been installed, the work on the asphalt, more of the screw type piers on the ground waiting for installation. And on the bottom of the screen is some of the cable trays that will go from the equipment over the parapet wall and into the building, much like we saw on the south side. There are some deliveries here at the north end of the building. And as I kind of maneuver around here, good look at much of the plumbing and pipe installation that is happening throughout this section and connecting over to the lift station, which is the bottom of the screen. Here's some more pipes, some of them corrugated steel, some of them have been covered with concrete here. And you can see some of the concrete vaults and cable conduit as well. Getting to the part 2 of the chiller system. It's a nice close-in view of the work right now. Some equipment has been delivered. You can see the water standing on those 6 sections from the thunderstorms and the kind of covered walkways that go around the perimeter. Also a good view of the vaults at the bottom of the screen where the large pipes will go through and enter into the building. Here's a look at one of the workshops and the still plastic covered chiller system for the battery cathode plant. And here more work underway, doing final assembly of the part 1 of the cooling system with the 6 fans. We also see a lot more pipes have been delivered here at the bottom of the screen, and work with some excavation near the perimeter wall of that chiller plant. And the temporary cooling units with the 18 trailers also continues to have installation work, some transformers, and also some other equipment that is being installed. So that'll be it for today. A very wide-ranging flight. As I come up to a higher altitude, a really nice view to the north of where that North Campus is being built. The campus for the Cortex 2 die shop and the battery cathode plant, the electrical switchyard, the east warehouse on wheels, the main factory, and the distance, the end of line, and way in the upper left center of the screen is the test track. I hope that this was helpful, and I do appreciate your support. Thank you very much. Have a great day.